How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Screamers: The Hunting. This is from 2009, directed by Sheldon Wilson, and stars Gina Holder, Jana Pallaske, Bryk, but also features an early appearance from Stephen Amell. Stephen Amell, you know as Green Arrow from CW show Arrow. Cool to see an early appearance by him, and even though his character does play out to be one of the major characters, he is shockingly quite low in the credits. I feel that if this ever got reprinted, they would probably put Stephen Amell's name pretty promptly on the front. Also, we have an appearance from Lance Henriksen. Always cool to see Lance Henriksen again. A smaller role, really just towards the third act of this movie, but still cool to see him here nonetheless, even if it is in a limited capacity. Anyway, Screamers: The Hunting is a direct-to-video sequel to the cult classic Screamers. Definitely go check out the original Screamers if you haven't. It's very good. But of course, Screamers was based on the short story Second Variety by a sci-fi icon, Philip K. Dick. Philip K. Dick's other books got made into things like Total Recall, Blade Runner, and Minority Report. And in turn, we actually do get Philip K. Dick's name on the DVD box above the title. So that's pretty cool, even though this is a sequel to a movie based on his work, and we've traveled a bit of a distance away from the source material, but whatever. Still got his name on the box. Anyway, this movie, I guess I should open up by saying, has a bit of a reputation. The first Screamers was a classic, and it wasn't super successful at the box office, but it got a lot of people saying, whenever they did see it, I can't believe I haven't seen this movie yet. How do more people not know about it? And spreading the word. So even though it wasn't initially successful, it had enough of a cult following that about 14 years later, gee, that's a lot of time, we got a direct-to-video sequel. And a direct-to-video sequel to a cult classic movie, I think we all know how this plays out. And overall, if you had just seen this on its own merit, it wouldn't have been great. But seeing it and then comparing it to the original, that makes it even worse. And overall, yeah, you have a cult favorite that more people want to know, and then we get a movie that ultimately feels very cheap and generic and uninspired, sadly. And I do want to say, I'm not a comedy teardown critic. I don't take particularly any joy in being mean to a movie. I do have to give my honest opinion and analysis, though, and this isn't great. Now, that being said, taken on its own thing, if you were just to imagine that this was just a lazy Saturday afternoon sci-fi action shoot-'em-up movie, it wouldn't be great. It wouldn't be horrible. Like, to be honest, I've seen so many movies that are so much worse. I watched The Lair recently from Shudder. Oh man, talk about generic and forgettable. So this isn't the worst thing that I've seen. And as far as a lazy Saturday afternoon, turn your brain off, watch the shooting, it's not terrible, but it is pretty forgettable, and it's going to be one of those that you forget about it starting the next day, and it's just gonna fade away. So yeah, not a great movie, not the worst thing ever, but it is even worse when you compare it to the original. And those flaws, special effects and sets, that cheap feeling, I do want to say it's not the cheapest feeling, but it does feel like a sci-fi original. You know how the first Screamers had that CGI spaceship toward the end that really didn't hold up? A lot of CGI in this movie that doesn't hold up. bad CGI, and the sets feel more like sets, and there are a few moments that work and a few things that look cool, and you could tell people were trying, but it really is a limitation of the budget as far as the looks go. The first movie still holds up. Mostly practical, still looks cool. A few effects in the first movie that don't, and you can tell they're green screen cutouts. But the first movie, especially, man, those sets, and it looked really, really good. This movie, it doesn't. You know, there's some moments, you know, they're looking in the Screamer factory, and there's like one shot where they see down into the factory, and I'm like, okay, that's not perfect, but that's some effort. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. It's just Sci-Fi Channel feeling stuff, you know? But the story, really, really uninspired. A group of rescuers go down to the planet, find the danger still there. Very aliens, you know? But the fact that humans, or rather robots, can make themselves look like humans, that was the big deal with Screamers, the first one. It was a doppelganger movie. It was an imposter movie. This one, the fact that robots look like aliens does not play near as much into the story this time around as you think it would. Basically, whenever there is a robot in disguise, you know it. It's pretty easy to say, that person's a robot, that person's a robot. Obvious twist is obvious. And you'll think that a few times during this movie. And also, it'll be like, a lot of the times when you see a screamer that looks like a person, a lot of them are obviously dead characters. And yeah, I mean, that's not really, like, there's no paranoia. You know, there's no, is this robot tricking me? A Philip K. Dick adaptation that doesn't focus on paranoia. I mean, the robots aren't used great, and also the cool ones from the original don't show up near as much, and also they don't scream as much. You know, I'm sure they scream a little bit, but there's no iconic, you know, screaming at the camera, that high-pitched sound. It's called Screamers, and we needed more screaming. But anyway, yeah, as far as from the original, none of the characters really show up, none of the plot and the themes really show up. And before we get into specifics, I do want to mention also pretty bad directing at times. There'll be things, when you do a movie, there should be big, impactful things that happen, but there's so many shots in this movie where something big and impactful happens, it didn't leave much of an impression on me, though, the way it was shot. And it was more the characters flipping out afterwards, and I'm like, wait, what happened? Did something important happen? For example, there's a shot of a dead body. It is shot in such a mundane, boring way, and there's also a ton of other dead bodies in this movie, especially older ones, that they show the dead body, it just freaking doesn't register with me, and then all of a sudden all the characters are screaming. I'm like, what? Oh, he died. You know, had to rewind it a little bit. There's also another shot where they're like, oh no, so-and-so's disappeared. And I'm like, oh, did I miss something? I go back, and they do that, a knockoff of Alien, right? Where the character's standing there, and the screamer tail comes down behind her, and it is so freaking underlit. I didn't even see the screamer tail, but it was supposed to be this big and impactful, oh no, that character's doomed shot, but I didn't even see it till I rewound it because it was so freaking gray and in the background and didn't stand out. So yeah, there are important shots. When something important happens in your movie, you want the big bang comic book shot that really emphasizes and sells the weight. In this movie, it doesn't do that, and a few things just don't quite click, and it does feel like there are a few shots missing from this movie. And yeah, not the best in production value. There's some bad acting, there's some bad uninspired writing, and bad direction. So yeah, this movie didn't come out the best, but like I said, I've seen some absolutely terrible stuff. I don't want to say this is the worst. It is a passable, lazy Saturday afternoon movie that, as long as you don't remember that it's a sequel to a great underrated cult sci-fi film, you can turn your brain off and have a little bit of fun with it, but good luck remembering it in a few days. Sorry about the rant. Anyway, in order to analyze this movie further, I do want to talk a little bit about the plot. No major spoilers, but I do want to look at what's going on, analyze a few things, and yeah, analyze this movie more, but I won't spoil the ending. Anyway, we open up with a group of survivors. They're attacked by screamers, but one of them manages to make it inside a building, push a button, and send out a distress call. Took us the whole first movie to get to something that big, but in the prologue, these characters just push a button and they sent out for help. Okay, that was easy. Also, not to get on too big of a side tangent, especially because I think I've rambled earlier in this video already, the freaking guns in this movie, rifle, not rifle, okay? They are holding their guns at like midsection level. No, okay. Get through this quick. Rifle, a sight in the front, a sight at the tip. Look down the sights, make sure they're lined up, and then point that at whatever you want to shoot. That is called aiming. If you have your rifle not here, but down here, anything you hit is blind luck. So many people do not properly aim their guns in this movie. Also, rifle against the shoulder. Maybe this is a sci-fi future gun without any kickback, but you really want your rifle resting up here because the gun will kick back, and if you're holding it down here, you'll swing your arms around like an idiot and probably endanger yourself and your friends. Don't hold your gun down here. Everyone in the opening part of this movie is... okay. Side tangent over. Anyway, they send out a rescue mission because they get this signal, right? Which doesn't really fit within the first movie. In the first movie, it was, we're out in space. Nobody cares about us on this distant planet. Those people of Earth, they don't care what happens on Sirius 6B. But here they're sending out a rescue and they're helping everybody. Whatever. We, of course, get the waking up from hypersleep like an alien. We're introduced to all these soldiers like in Aliens. And a lot of the soldiers are pretty forgettable. You get your main girl, who we remember because she's the main character, but not really for too much else. They're all pretty generic soldier characters. The main girl, at least twice during this movie, people will go up to her and say, "Why are you here?" "Because I volunteered for the mission." "No, why are you really here?" And she really didn't give off that vibe. But let's just say, whenever they said this, there's only like 3 or so possibilities where this plot is going. Obvious twist is obvious, once again, but hey, whatever. Anyway, they do a debriefing and we find out what happened to Peter Weller's character. His ship exploded on re-entry to Earth and people believe it was a suicide. I guess so that he could blow up that screamer teddy bear, but you're telling me RoboCop couldn't defeat a teddy bear? Okay, and why did the teddy bear make a move before it got to Earth? You think it would have been completely incognito because it doesn't want to be discovered before they get to Earth, and a teddy bear can't pilot the ship. How did he even find out? And whatever. Good for Peter Weller for not leading Earth to destruction via Screamer, but we have to add him to the list of characters that were cool characters in the original and got super disappointing fates early on in the sequel, and sadly this list of characters is very, very long. They also mention he had insane shell-shocked ramblings, which I'm sure must have included screamers can look like people, but they don't mention the specifics of his ramblings. That would have been helpful. But anyway, they are going to wear their tabs, but they don't think there's anything down there because screamers have a 2-year battery and then they're going to die. Blade Runner was a different Philip K. Dick story. I don't know why we're suddenly introducing this 2-year battery, but it makes no sense. Okay, a screamer has a 2-year battery and it will die? The factory doesn't. The factory can either make new batteries, or if for some reason you can't change a screamer battery, you could make more screamers. And if the screamers can alter their production design, I think one of the first things they're going to do is introduce a better fuel source so they can kill people longer. And also at the beginning of the first Screamers movie, the war had gone on for more than 2 years already, so clearly they found a way around that problem. Stupid writing. Did anyone run this by anybody? Anyway, they have to do this rescue really quick because the whole planet is going to be wiped out by this big solar storm in 6 days. So they got to go down there and get the people off in 6 days. And they totally will totally care about how little time they have left, and they'll definitely rush and want to be off there in time. Anyway, the Screamers, of course, attack them. They meet the survivors, and apparently the Screamers had tried the whole "we're from Earth" thing, and now the survivors don't believe them, even though they did send out the distress call. So the survivors don't like them, the Screamers are after them, and they try to just buzz off, but the Screamers took all the power from their ship, and which means they can refill their batteries, but they took all the power from their ship, and now they have to turn to the survivors who don't trust them and get some help to get off the planet. And a few things. A few dumb scenes with this. The first attack with the Screamers, they all just don't have their tabs on. Hey, turn this thing on and it will make these killer robots not kill you. It doesn't cost anything other than a little electricity to turn the tab on, and these people almost get massacred by Screamers just because they don't have their tabs on. And then, of course, one guy either forgot his or lost it or something, and we get a soldier going, "Take mine." I mean, good for him to do, but I don't know why. There's no emotional weight to this. And then he gets instantly eaten by a Screamer, because of course he does. There's so much frustrating writing in this. You know, why did they all have their tabs off? And then this guy makes a sacrifice because someone else made a stupid decision to not make sure he didn't have his anti-killer robot wristband on. Why? There's another frustrating scene. It's a little further than I normally want to go in the movie, but it's not a huge spoiler. But there's another frustrating scene where they get in and they talk with the humans and they say, "Screamers can look like people," and then they just wander around the base unchecked, and the main girl finds a bunch of people locked up. Screamers can look like people. Hey, there's some people locked up. Tell me you are not about to make a very, very stupid decision. Again, obvious twist is obvious. It's very frustrating. I guess before we get out of here, I do want to talk about Lance Henriksen. He's in this movie for a little bit. Primarily just the third act and not all of that. He plays a cool, gruffer, older character that has some relation to the main events of the story. And overall, it's pretty cool to see him and what he's been doing to survive. And, you know, some of his character is pretty cool. Wish he was in the movie more, but, I mean, they could only afford Lance Henriksen for about 20 or so minutes of screen time, if that. Which also explains why they don't have Peter Weller in this movie. Which, really, man, it's too bad they didn't. But Lance Henriksen is around for a bit. He's cool. This is clearly one of his paycheck movies, but he is still the best actor in this movie. Although that being said, frustrating moment from the side characters, because literally in this movie they mention Lance Henriksen's character by name and what he did. And then later on in the movie, he introduces himself by his name, but the characters don't recognize who he is until they physically see it. It's so frustrating. Remember that guy that did this, and then, hey, I'm that guy. Oh, cool. Wander around for a bit. Wait, you're the guy that did that? Oh, man. There's so many just little frustrating things in the writing, and I feel like if you had someone just give a pass over this script and say, hey, this doesn't quite work and this makes no sense. It just needed another rewrite by an editor that was a little bit competent. I'm sorry. I said earlier I don't like to ramble about these things, and I said earlier that this isn't the worst movie ever, and I really am sorry. I'm getting caught in all these little tangents. The video's already too long. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, let's wrap this up. Screamers, The Hunting, not the worst sci-fi movie ever. It is generic and uninspired. It looks cheap. It has moments of bad writing, acting, and directing. It's not the worst thing ever. If it's viewed on its own, it is an okay, lazy Saturday afternoon sci-fi action movie. But when compared to the cult classic that was the original, go check it out. When compared to the original, it makes it look even worse, and I'm sorry I ranted for so long, but there's so many things that bugged me about it. So overall, not the worst movie ever, but not great. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. How about my Philip K. Dick playlist? In this playlist, you should be able to find my reviews for the original Screamers, as well as Blade Runner and Adjustment Bureau and Paycheck. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Philip K. Dick playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.